Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The Velaware headquarters gleamed in the morning sun, a monument to modern corporate success. Floor-to-ceiling windows reflected Seattle's skyline, the company's name emblazoned in sleek silver lettering above the entrance. Inside, the conference room buzzed with anticipation as executives gathered for the quarterly product review. Ronan Matthews sat in the back corner, observing. Though he'd founded Velaware 15 years ago, transforming it from a humble kitchenware startup into an empire, most employees now viewed him as just another consultant. A relic. The company's past, not its future. His wife, Ivy Matthews, commanded the room from its head. Her crimson blazer stood out against the minimalist white decor, her presence magnetic as she flipped through the presentation slides. As you can see, our premium knife line is projected to increase market share by 17% next quarter, she said, her voice carrying that practiced blend of authority and ease. But we have a problem. Ronan watched as she pulled up an email on the main screen. This morning, I received notification that our Southeast Asian launch has been delayed by 3 weeks. The room quieted. Ivy's expression hardened as she scrolled to reveal photographs of packaging samples. "Clay," she said, her tone suddenly ice-cold. "Would you care to explain why the dimensions you provided to manufacturing were off by 2 centimeters? All eyes turned to Clay Darnell, a junior designer who joined Velaware just 8 months prior. The young man's face drained of color as he fumbled with his tablet. There must be some mistake," he stammered. "I double-checked those measurements before submission." Ivy's laugh was sharp. "Clearly not well enough. This error will cost us approximately $800,000 in rush fees and lost revenue." She turned to the room. "This, everyone, is amateur hour. And Velaware doesn't do amateur hour." Clay's throat worked visibly. "Ms. Matthews, if I could just—" "You can clear your desk by noon." Ivy cut him off. "We'll mail your final check." The silence that followed was absolute. Ronan felt his jaw tighten, but maintained his neutral expression. Through the years of building Velaware, he'd cultivated a reputation for calm decisiveness, not the public executions Ivy seemed to prefer. "Let's move on," Ivy continued, already advancing to the next slide. "Julian will present the new social media campaign." As the meeting progressed, Ronan observed Clay gather his materials with shaking hands and slip out of the room. Nobody acknowledged him. Nobody dared meet his eyes. Ronan made a mental note of everything: the unnecessary humiliation, the lack of due process, the fear that now permeated the room. All symptoms of what Velaware had become under Ivy's leadership. When the meeting ended, executives filed out with forced enthusiasm about the upcoming projects. Ronan remained seated, watching his wife collect her things. "That was unnecessary," he said quietly when they were alone. Ivy glanced up, seeming almost surprised to find him still there. "What was firing Clay like that? In front of everyone?" She rolled her eyes. "Please, when did you become so soft? That kid cost us nearly $1 million. He made a mistake, one that could have been caught by quality control or his supervisor. And now they'll all be more careful, won't they?" Ivy snapped her laptop shut. "This isn't your garage workshop anymore, Ronan. This is business." Ronan stood slowly, straightening his simple black blazer. "You're right. It is business." Something in his tone made Ivy pause, but he was already heading for the door. Their home sat perched on a hillside overlooking Lake Washington, all glass and steel and calculated elegance. Like everything in their lives, it was designed to impress a showcase more than a sanctuary. Ronan stood at the kitchen island, knife moving in practice strokes as he prepared dinner. The blade, one of his original designs, sliced through vegetables with effortless precision. Cooking remained one of his few pleasures, a tactile connection to the craft that had launched his career. "You're making pasta again." Ivy appeared in the doorway, already changed into silk loungewear, a Velaware crystal wine glass dangling from her fingers. "Risotto," Ronan corrected without looking up. "Same difference." She slid onto a bar stool, swirling her red wine. "God, you should have seen Clay's face today. like a puppy that got kicked. Ronan continued chopping. He was a good designer. He was mediocre at best. Ivy took a long sip. Anyway, we can easily replace him. Have 10 better candidates by tomorrow. That's not the point. Then what is the point, Ronan? Her voice took on that familiar edge. Enlighten me with your infinite wisdom. He remained focused on his task. The point is building something that lasts. Something with integrity. Ivy laughed. Oh, please, say me the craftsman's speech. Integrity doesn't sell copper-infused frying pans to millennials. Ronan finally looked up. It sold them for the first 8 years. Before the celebrity endorsements and the corner cutting. Before we became successful, you mean? Ivy's eyes narrowed. You used to have fire, Ronan. Remember when you fought for your designs? Now you hide behind cutting boards and steel molds like some washed-up craftsman. The knife paused in Ronan's hand. Careful who you insult. You forget who built this. Built. Ivy's laugh was brittle. I made it famous. You'd still be selling saucepans at street fairs if I hadn't come along. Ronan set the knife down with deliberate care. Is that what you tell yourself? It's the truth. Face it, your time is over. The board agrees with me. What does that mean? Ronan's voice remained quiet. Ivy smiled, a calculated flash of perfect teeth. Just how we've been discussing the future of Velaware leadership. Your consultant role might be evolving. You're pushing me out. I'm modernizing, she corrected, standing. Dinner's going to be late again, isn't it? I'll order sushi. She swept out of the kitchen, leaving Ronan alone with a half-prepared meal and the realization that the storm he'd sensed brewing was about to break. The boardroom air felt charged when Ronan entered the next morning. He noted the uncomfortable glances, the forced smiles, the way conversation died as he approached. All the signs were there. Ivy stood at the head of the table in a tailored white suit, confidence radiating from her stance. Beside her, Mads Henriksen, head of international markets, and Ivy's closest ally shuffled through presentation materials. Good morning, everyone. Ivy began once everyone was seated. Before we dive into quarterly projections, I want to discuss an organizational restructuring proposal. Ronan leaned back in his chair, face impassive. As you all know, Ivy continued, Velaware has experienced extraordinary growth in the past 5 years. Our brand recognition is at an all-time high, and our product line has expanded into lifestyle categories we never imagined when we began as a simple cookware company. Nods around the table. Ronan remained still. To continue this trajectory, we need leadership that reflects our future vision. Ivy's gaze swept the room, carefully avoiding Ronan. I'm proposing a streamlining of our executive structure that better aligns with our brand identity. Mads stepped forward. The market research is clear. Our customers respond to innovation, youth, digital integration. The old ways of doing business simply don't resonate with modern consumers. Old ways. Ronan almost smiled at the euphemism. Let's be direct, Ivy said. Ronan's role as senior design consultant has become emotionally outdated. His vision, while foundational to our beginning, has become a branding liability. The board members shifted uncomfortably. No one looked at Ronan. We don't need incompetent people like him anymore. Ivy continued, her voice hardening. Let's clean house. I assume you prepared a formal vote. Ronan spoke for the first time, his voice calm. Ivy blinked, momentarily thrown by his lack of reaction. Yes. The proposal is to remove the senior design consultant position effective immediately, with transition of all responsibilities to the creative director team. All in favor? Mads quickly interjected, hands raised around the table, some eager, others hesitant. In the end, only one board member abstained. The rest sided with Ivy. Motion passes, Ivy announced, satisfaction evident in her tone. Ronan, we'll have HR prepare the appropriate paperwork. Ronan stood slowly, buttoning his jacket. The room tensed, perhaps expecting an outburst or plea. Instead, he gathered his notebook and pen. Fine, he said simply. Fire me. He walked toward the door, feeling their eyes on his back. At the threshold, he paused and turned at a smile small but unmistakable crossed his face. Good luck, he said, and walked out. Behind him, The boardroom erupted in confused murmurs. None of them understood the significance of that smile. None except Ivy, whose expression flickered briefly with something close to uncertainty. Ronan sat in his home office, surrounded by the evidence of a decade's meticulous planning. Financial statements, corporate filings, acquisition reports, all arranged in precise chronological order. The culmination of patience and foresight spread across his desk like a battle map. He remembered the first warning sign, 9 years earlier. A casual comment from Ivy over dinner. The brand needs a face people can connect with. That night, he made the first call to Jasper Lynn, his mentor and advisor since culinary school. Insurance. Jasper had called it. Even the best marriages need insurance. The plan had been simple, but required absolute discretion. While Ivy focused on publicity and expansion, Ronan quietly began buying back Velaware stock through a network of shell companies and blind trusts. First 10%, then 25%, eventually surpassing 50%. Acquisitions came through entities with no obvious connection. Riverstone Holdings, Blue Summit Investments, Northstar Equities, all leading back to Ronan through a labyrinth of paperwork only a dedicated forensic accountant could unravel. When investors looked to cash out, Ronan was there with competitive offers. When new funding rounds opened, his proxies participated enthusiastically, all while maintaining the appearance of the supportive founder who'd gracefully stepped into the background. Now, the final report sat before him. 90.3% ownership of Velaware's voting shares. Complete control. Ivy had never bothered with the financial details. She assumed they shared 50-50 in spirit, which had been true, until she'd made her ambitions clear. She'd never even read the fine print in their prenuptial agreement, too eager to sign the papers and start planning the wedding that would launch her into Seattle's social elite. Ronan picked up his phone and dialed. "It's done," he said when Jasper answered. 90.3. "Congratulations," the older man replied. "How does it feel?" Ronan looked at the framed photo on his desk himself and Ivy on Velaware's opening day, both smiling, her arm around his waist, his around her shoulders. "Like armor," he answered. The Emerald Bean Cafe sat tucked away in Pike Place Market's labyrinth of shops, far from Velaware's corporate circle. Ronan chose a corner table with a view of both the entrance and the waterfront beyond. He ordered a plain black coffee and waited. Clay Darnell arrived 15 minutes early, nervous energy evident in his quick movements and darting eyes. He traded his designer clothing for jeans and a faded hoodie, as if shedding his corporate skin. Ronan stood as Clay approached. "Thank you for coming, Mr. Matthews." Clay nodded, surprise still evident in his expression. "I wasn't sure if I should." "Ronan, please." He gestured to the chair opposite. "And I'm glad you did." Clay settled uneasily. "Your assistant was vague about the reason for this meeting." "Deliberately so." Ronan pushed a folder across the table. "I'd like you to look at these designs." Clay opened the folder, confusion giving way to interest as he examined the sketches inside. "These are kitchen implements, but different from Velaware's aesthetic." "Completely different," Ronan confirmed. "More functional, more honest. The balance on this chef's knife is incredible," Clay murmured, tracing the drawing with his finger. "In this handle design, it follows the natural grip pattern. You have a good eye." Clay looked up, wariness returning. "Why show me this?" Ronan took a sip of coffee. "Because I'm offering you a job." "A job?" Clay's brow furrowed. "At Velaware? After what happened?" "Not at Velaware. At my new company. Forge House Company." Clay studied Ronan's face. "I don't understand." "I'm establishing an independent brand focusing on artisan kitchen tools. Handcrafted, sustainable, built to last generations. Everything Velaware used to stand for." Comprehension dawned in Clay's eyes. "You're going to compete with Velaware?" Ronan's expression remained steady. "I'm going to dismantle it." Silence hung between them as Clay processed this. Finally, he closed the folder. "Why me?" he asked. "I'm the guy who cost your company $1 million. "No," Ronan corrected. "You're the guy who made a minor measurement error that any decent quality control system would have caught. You're also the designer who created our 3 best-selling knife handles last quarter." Clay's surprise was evident. You know about that? I know everyone's contributions, even when they don't receive credit for them. Clay leaned back, a hint of bitterness crossing his face. Ivy took credit for my ergonomic design in that industry magazine interview. She did, Ronan agreed. That's how she operates. And now you want revenge. I want correction, Ronan replied. There's a difference. Clay stared out the window for a long moment. What will my role be? Head designer. Full creative input. Proper recognition for your work. Salary. Double what Velaware paid you, plus equity. Clay laughed in disbelief. Sounds too good to be true. The work will be harder, Ronan cautioned. We start from scratch. No corporate safety net. Clay fingered the folder's edge, considering. Velaware has resources, connections. How do you plan to compete? Ronan's smile was slight but confident. I built Velaware from nothing once. I can do it again, but better this time. With people who understand what craftsmanship means. Clay extended his hand. When do I start? As they shook, Ronan felt the first pieces of his plan locking into place. The private warehouse in Bellevue sat nestled among identical structures, anonymous except for its number. Inside, however, the space transformed into a craftsman's paradise, polished workbenches, specialized tools, and prototype cookware arranged with meticulous precision. Jasper Lynn stood examining a copper pan under bright lights. At 72, his hands remained steady, his eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. As Ronan's first mentor, he'd guided the transition from talented chef to visionary designer. Now, as trusted confidant, he served as both conscience and co-conspirator. Your young designer has talent, Jasper commented, setting down the pan. These prototypes show promise. Clay works quickly, Ronan agreed, moving to a table covered with material samples. He understands the vision. Jasper joined him, running his fingers over a swatch of carbon fiber composite. Vision alone won't be enough. Velaware has market dominance, distribution channels, brand loyalty. They also have vulnerabilities. Ronan unrolled a large document, a supply chain map marked with highlights and annotations. 3 main material suppliers. 2 primary manufacturers. 1 distribution center handling 70% of North American shipments. Jasper studied the map. You want to disrupt their supply chain? I want to control it, Ronan corrected. Oak Ridge Materials is looking for investors. Their Indonesian facility supplies 60% of Velaware's specialized steel. Acquisition would be expensive, worth every penny. Ronan pointed to another highlighted section. Global 4 Manufacturing is unhappy with Velaware's payment terms. They've been looking for additional clients. Jasper nodded slowly. You're building a stranglehold. I'm creating leverage. The older man looked up, concern evident in his eyes. This goes beyond business, Ronan. This is personal. It became personal when Ivy decided to erase me from my own company, Ronan replied, his voice hardening slightly. When she started dismantling everything we built. Revenge is a dangerous motivation. This isn't about revenge. It's about restoration. Ronan met his mentor's gaze. Velaware meant something once. It stood for quality, integrity, craftsmanship. And you want to reclaim that. I want to preserve it. Jasper moved to a workbench where a prototype knife lay next to its Velaware counterpart. He picked up both, weighing them. So what's the strategy? He asked finally. Direct confrontation? Ronan shook his head. You want to win? Let her hang herself. Then take the crown. Meaning, Ivy believes in perception over substance. Image over quality. Ronan took the Velaware knife, testing its edge with his thumb. I'll acquire control of their supply, chain piece by piece. Quality will suffer. Deliveries will delay. Customer complaints will increase. And she'll blame her team, Jasper concluded, while pushing more aggressive marketing to compensate. More promises. Less delivery. Ronan set the knife down. When Velaware's reputation is sufficiently damaged, I'll reveal my ownership position and implement corrective measures. Jasper's expression remained neutral, but his eyes reflected understanding. And Ivy, Ronan turned away, moving toward a shelf of material samples. Will receive exactly what she's earned. The older man watched him for a moment. Remember what I taught you about knife making, Ronan? Too much heat makes the blade brittle. Too much force breaks it entirely. I remember, Ronan replied. But I also remember what you said about precision. What was that? Cut once. Cut clean. Ronan looked back at his mentor. No second chances needed. Ronan sat in his car across from Velaware headquarters, watching his employees streamed into the building. 3 weeks had passed since his removal. 3 weeks of careful positioning and strategic acquisitions. Now, as Ivy called an emergency product development meeting, he waited for his inside source. Julian Shin exited the building at precisely 11:47 a.m., right on schedule. Tall and impeccably dressed, Velaware's marketing director made a show of checking his watch and frowning as he headed toward the nearby coffee shop. Ronan gave him a 2-minute head start before following. Inside, Julian had already claimed a corner table. His expression revealed nothing as Ronan approached and sat down. 7 minutes, Julian said without preamble. I told them I need a caffeine fix before the afternoon session. Ronan nodded. What happened in there? She's panicking. Julian's voice remained professionally neutral, but satisfaction glinted in his eyes. The Acropolis shipment is 3 weeks delayed. Material quality issues with the new pans. The Miami store opening might be postponed. How is she handling it? Badly. Fired 2 more people this morning. Blamed quality control for not catching material defects. And the board, getting nervous. Q3 projections are down. Stock dipped 8% since last week. Ronan took this in with an even expression. What's her solution? That's the interesting part. Julian leaned forward slightly. She's doubling down. Announced a new premium line today, Velaware Luxe. Copper-infused, gold-accented handles. Limited edition color variants. Testing. Minimal. She's rushing production to hit the holiday season. Manufacturing source. New supplier. Cheaper, faster turnaround. Quality is questionable. Ronan nodded once. Is she still bringing in the celebrity chef endorsements? Signed 3 more last week. Some Food Network personality, a social media chef, and a restaurant owner from Los Angeles. None of them with actual product development experience. Perfect. Ronan slid a thin envelope across the table. New instructions. I need production schedules for the Luxe line. Julian pocketed the envelope without looking at it. She trusts me completely, you know? Thinks I'm her loyal soldier. Aren't you? I was your employee first, Julian replied. Before she demoted me from product development to marketing, before she took credit for my Mediterranean collection concept. Ronan checked his watch. Your 7 minutes are almost up. Julian stood. There's one more thing. She's planning a major announcement at the shareholders' meeting next month. Something about the new era of Velaware. She'll have her new era, Ronan said. Just not the one she imagines. As Julian walked away, Ronan remained seated, mentally adjusting timelines. Ivy was accelerating her own downfall faster than he'd anticipated. All he needed to do was ensure he was positioned to capitalize on it. The restaurant buzzed with Seattle's elite tech entrepreneurs, local celebrities, and social media influencers all crowding the exclusive downtown venue. At the center of it all sat Ivy, radiant in a designer dress, laughing as cameras flashed and glasses clinked. Beside her, Marcus Kent, a food influencer with millions of followers and a carefully cultivated image of culinary expertise, kept his arm draped possessively across the back of her chair. His signature smile flashed on cue whenever phones pointed their way. Ronan observed from across the street, standing in the shadows of a hotel lobby with clear sight lines to the restaurant's windows. Beside him, Clay shifted uncomfortably. This feels like stalking, the younger man muttered. It's reconnaissance, Ronan corrected. Know your opponent's movements. Still weird to see her with another guy when you're still technically married. Ronan's expression remained neutral. Our marriage has been a business arrangement for years. This is just the latest publicity stunt. Inside the restaurant, Ivy stood to make a toast. Even from a distance, her practice charm was evident, the perfect tilt of her head, the confident gesture, the way she commanded attention without seeming to try. She's launching the Luxe collection tonight, Ronan explained. Invitation-only preview. Social media exclusives. Will it work? Clay asked. Short term? Yes. The influencers will rave. Pre-orders will surge. Ronan watched as Ivy guided Marcus through a performative cooking demonstration for the cameras. But the product is rushed, untested. When it fails to deliver on its promises, the backlash will be public and severe. Clay nodded toward the restaurant. They seem pretty cozy for a professional relationship. It's calculated, Ronan replied. She wants the lifestyle brand association. He wants the corporate legitimacy. Neither cares about the other beyond what they provide. Cold, efficient, Ronan corrected. Until it isn't. Inside, Ivy was now presenting gleaming copper pans from the Luxe collection, demonstrating their lightweight design as Marcus provided enthusiastic commentary. The assembled guests applauded on cue, phones raised to capture every moment. Time to go, Ronan said, turning away from the scene. We have our own product line to finalize. As they walked toward the parking garage, Clay glanced back once. For someone planning such elaborate payback, you seem pretty calm about your wife dating other guys. I'm angry about what matters, Ronan replied. Velaware was built on craftsmanship, quality, integrity. Ivy is turning it into a shell, all marketing, no substance. That's the betrayal worth addressing. So it's not personal. Ronan unlocked his car with a quiet beep. Everything worth fighting for is personal, Clay. The question is which battles deserve your energy. As they drove away, neither noticed Julian standing near the restaurant entrance, watching them with careful attention before slipping inside to join Ivy's celebration. The annual Velaware shareholders meeting transformed the company's atrium into a showcase of corporate success. Video walls displayed growth projections and product highlights. Refreshment tables featured food prepared with Velaware cookware. Staff circulated with demonstration pieces from the new Luxe collection. Ivy stood near the entrance, greeting major investors with practiced warmth. Her crimson dress, the exact shade of the Velaware logo, made her the focal point of every conversation, every photograph. Beside her, Mads maintained a running commentary on attendance and stock positions. Berkshire Group just arrived, she murmured. 8% voting block. They've been wavering since the production delays. Ivy's smile never faltered. Make sure they see the Q4 projections. And get Marcus to show them the chef's knife demo. Already arranged. Mads checked her tablet. We're at 87% attendance. Should we begin? Wait 5 more minutes, Ivy replied. I want a packed house for the announcement. As shareholders filled the rows of chairs facing the presentation stage, Julian approached with a concerned expression. Something wrong? Ivy asked, her voice low. Just received word that the Luxe collection pre-orders are lower than projected, he reported. 30% under target. Ivy waved this away. Launch week. Numbers always fluctuate. We'll adjust the marketing push next week. There's also an issue with the Tokyo shipment. Quality control rejected nearly 40% of the units. For a fraction of a second, irritation flashed across Ivy's face before her professional mask returned. Handle it. That's why I pay you. Julian nodded, disappearing back into the crowd as Ivy turned to scan the room once more. All the necessary players were present: board members, major investors, media representatives. Missing only was her soon-to-be ex-husband, whose absence she'd expected and welcomed. Let's begin, she told Mads, moving toward the stage. Spotlights activated as Ivy took her position at the podium. The crowd settled into attentive silence. Welcome to Velaware's annual shareholders meeting, she began, her voice projecting confidence. Before we dive into our financial performance, I want to share my vision for our future. Behind her, the screens displayed a sleek montage of Velaware products in stylish homes, celebrity kitchens, and social media posts. This past year has been transformative, Ivy continued. Our brand awareness has increased 63%. Our social media impressions have tripled. Our partnerships with leading influencers have opened entirely new market segments. Graphs and charts appeared, all trending upward. The audience nodded appreciatively. This is the new age of Velaware, Ivy announced, her voice rising with practiced emotion. No longer just a cookware company, but a lifestyle brand that The rear doors opened. Conversation died as heads turned. In the sudden silence, footsteps echoed against marble flooring. Ronan walked slowly up the center aisle, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, his expression calm and focused. Behind him came Jasper Lynn, carrying a leather portfolio. Several unfamiliar attorneys followed, each bearing document cases. Ivy faltered mid-sentence, her professional composure slipping momentarily before she recovered. "Ronan," she said into the microphone, injecting a note of surprise into her voice. "We weren't expecting you. How nice of you to join us." Murmurs spread through the crowd as Ronan continued his measured approach to the stage. "Don't let me interrupt," he said, his voice carrying easily without amplification. "You were explaining the new age of Velaware." Tension crackled through the room. Ivy's smile tightened as she assessed the situation. "Perhaps we should move directly to the financial portion of our presentation," she suggested, gesturing for Mads to advance the slides. "Actually," Ronan countered, reaching the foot of the stage, "I'd like to propose a motion for immediate consideration by the shareholders." Mads stepped forward. "This isn't the appropriate time for—" "It's exactly the appropriate time," Ronan interrupted, his calm voice cutting through her objection. "As a shareholder, I move for an immediate vote on leadership re-election and board restructuring." The room erupted in confused conversation. Ivy's laugh cut through the noise, amplified by the microphone. "That's not on our agenda," she said, attempt at humor failing to mask her irritation. "And even if it were, you don't even have the votes." Ronan ascended the steps to the stage, followed by Jasper and the attorneys. One handed him a document folder, which he opened with deliberate calm. "I believe I do," he replied, his voice now picked up by the stage microphones. Ivy stepped back from the podium as Ronan approached, uncertainty flashing across her face for the first time. "What are you doing?" she asked, voice low but intense. Ronan didn't answer her. Instead, he addressed the room. "For those who don't know me, I'm Ronan Matthews, founder of Velaware." He placed the open folder on the podium. "And I'm here to correct a misunderstanding about the company's ownership structure." A technician handed him a remote. The screens behind him switched to a complex organizational chart. Velaware's public filings indicate a diverse ownership, Ronan explained, highlighting sections of the chart. 20% institutional investors, 30% board and executive holdings, 50% publicly traded shares. He clicked again. The chart reorganized, color coding shifting to reveal new patterns. However, when we trace the beneficial ownership through holding companies, the picture changes. Riverstone Holdings LLC lit up blue. Blue Summit Investments glowed green. Northstar Equities flashed yellow. One by one, seemingly unrelated entities illuminated in different colors. Over the past decade, Ronan continued, his voice steady, I have systematically acquired controlling interest in Velaware through various investment vehicles. The chart collapsed and simplified, all the colored sections merging into a single entity labeled Ronan Matthews Controlled Holdings. As of this morning, I control 90.3% of Velaware's voting shares. The room fell into stunned silence. Ivy stared at the screen, color draining from her face. That's impossible, she finally managed. I would have known. Would you? Ronan asked quietly. You've never been interested in the administrative details, Ivy. Too boring. Too technical. Mads stepped forward, tablet clutched against her chest like a shield. These documents would need to be verified. This could be a manipulation, or... They've been verified. Jasper Lynn spoke for the first time, his authoritative voice carrying across the room. As Velaware's former chief financial advisor and current SEC compliance consultant, I can confirm the accuracy of these filings. He gestured to the attorneys, who began distributing document packets to board members and major shareholders. This is absurd. Ivy snapped, recovering her composure. Even if you've been buying shares, our marital assets are separately maintained, Ronan finished for her, as clearly delineated in our prenuptial agreement, which specifically excludes all business assets, royalties, and control shares. Gasps and whispers spread through the audience. Ivy's expression hardened. You've been planning this all along, she said, voice tight with anger. From the beginning. Not from the beginning, Ronan corrected. Only from a moment you made it clear that Velaware's founding values were expendable. He turned back to the audience. As controlling shareholder, I hereby call for an immediate vote on the following motion. Complete restructuring of Velaware's executive leadership and board composition, effective immediately. Mad stepped forward again. This is highly irregular and potentially legal, Jasper interrupted. Completely legal and binding. All those in favor? Ronan asked, his hand raised. Around the room, shareholders and board members seeing the numbers, understanding the inevitable, slowly raised their hands as well. Motion carries, Ronan announced. Effective immediately. Ivy stood frozen, eyes darting between Ronan, the board members, and the exit doors. The careful facade of control had crumbled, revealing the panic beneath. You can't do this, she said, voice barely audible to the audience. We built this company together. Did we? Ronan asked, maintaining professional distance though they stood mere feet apart. Or did you build your career on what I created? Her eyes narrowed. I'm still your wife. A technicality that will soon be resolved. Ronan nodded to one of the attorneys, who approached with another folder. What is this? Ivy demanded as he handed it to her. Divorce papers, Ronan replied calmly, along with a copy of our prenuptial agreement. I thought you might have misplaced yours. Ivy flipped through the document, fingers trembling slightly. This can't be right. The company is explicitly excluded from marital assets, Ronan finished. Page 4, Section 12, Paragraph 3. Your signature is on page 27. She stared at the document, recognition dawning. That was 10 years ago. I didn't read the... You never cared about the details, Ronan said. You just liked the shine. From the audience, Marcus Kent rose from his seat. Ivy, what's happening? Should I? Sit down, Mr. Kent, Ronan said without looking away from Ivy. This is a shareholders' meeting, not a photo opportunity. Marcus hesitated, then slowly sank back into his chair as murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ivy's expression hardened into something cold and calculating. This isn't over. I have contracts, legal protections. The board approved my initiatives. The same board that just voted for restructuring. Ronan raised an eyebrow. Your employment contract includes performance clauses, Ivy. Clauses that recent quality issues, production delays, and inflated marketing expenditures have triggered. You caused those delays, she realized suddenly. The supplier issues. The manufacturing problems. That was you. Ronan didn't confirm or deny. Instead, he addressed the room again. As my first act under the new leadership structure, I am terminating Ivy Matthews' employment with Velaware, effective immediately, citing negligence and brand damage. Gasps and uncomfortable shifting filled the room. No one spoke in her defense. Ivy's hand tightened on the podium edge, knuckles white. You'll regret this, she said, voice low but intense. I made this brand what it is. The publicity, the connections, all mine. Connections that will vanish the moment your access to Velaware resources disappears, Ronan replied calmly. But don't worry. I've prepared a transition plan. He turned to address the audience again. I'm pleased to announce that Julian Chun will be stepping in as interim CEO, effective immediately. All eyes turned to Julian, who stood from his seat in the front row and made his way to the stage. He nodded respectfully to Ronan before taking a position at the podium. Thank you for your confidence, he said. I look forward to returning Velaware to its foundational principles of quality, craftsmanship, and integrity. Ivy stared at Julian in disbelief. You? My right hand. Never yours, Julian replied quietly. Always the company's. And the company deserves better than what it's become. Ronan gestured toward the back of the room, where Clay Darnell now stood. I'd also like to introduce Clay Darnell, who will be joining us as head of product development. Clay walked forward, confidence in his stride that had been absent during his Velaware employment. The irony wasn't lost on the attendees who had witnessed his humiliating dismissal months earlier. Ivy's composure finally shattered. This is a vendetta, personal revenge, dressed up as corporate restructuring. No, Ronan corrected. This is correction. Velaware will return to craftsmanship. No gimmicks. No hollow marketing. Just products that fulfill their promises. Mads stepped forward, attempting damage control. Perhaps we should adjourn to discuss transition details in private? Ronan shook his head. There's one final matter. He scanned the board members. Mads Henriksen, your position as head of international markets is also terminated, effective immediately. You can't, she began. I can't, Ronan interrupted. And I am. Your replacement has already been selected. From near the entrance, a woman in a tailored suit stepped forward. Several board members recognized her immediately. Alexandra Reyes, former operations executive for Velaware's largest competitor. Ms. Reyes brings 15 years of industry experience and a commitment to sustainable manufacturing practices, Ronan explained. Exactly the expertise we need during this transition. Ivy gathered her things, fury evident in every movement. You'll hear from my attorneys. I look forward to it, Ronan replied. They can contact our legal department directly. Security will escort you to collect your personal items. 2 security personnel appeared at the edge of the stage. The message was clear. Her time was over. As Ivy moved toward the exit, Marcus rose to follow her. Mr. Kent, Ronan called. Your promotional contract with Velaware has been terminated as well. The termination fee will be processed per the agreement terms. Marcus hesitated, glancing between Ivy and Ronan, calculation evident in his expression. Then, without a word to Ivy, he turned and approached one of Ronan's attorneys, already discussing payment terms. Ivy paused at the door, the final betrayal registered on her face before she pushed through and disappeared. Ronan turned back to the shareholders. Now, let's discuss the actual state of Velaware and our path forward. Ronan stood at the window of his office, watching Seattle's skyline fade into twilight. 3 weeks had passed since the shareholders' meeting. 3 weeks of methodical reconstruction, but a knock at the door preceded Julian's entrance. The press briefing is ready whenever you are, he said, though you should know that Ivy's already made her move. Ronan raised an eyebrow. Which outlet? Business Insider. Full interview claiming corporate sabotage and hostile takeover. Julian placed a tablet on the desk, screen displaying the article. She's painting herself as the victim of an elaborate revenge plot. Ronan skimmed the piece. Any traction? Minimal. 3 problems with her narrative. Julian ticked them off on his fingers. First, the quality issues are well documented and preceded your departure. Second, her relationship with Marcus imploded spectacularly when he realized she couldn't boost his brand anymore. He's given 2 interviews contradicting her version of events. And third, the Lux collection. Julian smiled slightly. Consumer Reports just published their review, called it all style, no substance, and highlighted for major design flaws. Social media is filled with customer complaints. Ronan nodded. What about Mads? Attempting to salvage her reputation. She's distancing herself from Ivy's decisions, claiming she was just following executive directives. And the board? Fully behind you now. Julian consulted his notes. The stock jumped 12% after the announcement of Alexandra's appointment. Another 8% when we revealed the renewed focus on quality manufacturing. Ronan moved to his desk, reviewing the documents awaiting his signature. And Forge House. Clay's prototype collection is ready for limited release. Waiting lists are already forming based on industry rumors alone. Good. Ronan signed the papers and handed them back. Schedule the press briefing for tomorrow morning. Short, focused, forward-looking. No mentions of Ivy or past leadership. Julian took the papers. The high road, the only road worth taking, Ronan replied. Velaware speaks through its products now, not its drama. As Julian moved to leave, Ronan added, one more thing. Have security change all my passcodes and access credentials. Expecting trouble. Always, Ronan replied. No loose ends. 6 months later, Ronan walked through the first Forge House retail store on its opening day. The space breathed craftsmanship, warm wood, brushed metal, and thoughtful lighting that invited customers to touch, feel, and experience the products. Clay appeared from the demonstration kitchen, where a chef was showcasing the new Forge House knife collection to an attentive audience. "We've sold out of the first production run," he reported, barely containing his excitement. "Every piece. The waiting list for the second run is already at 3 weeks." Ronan nodded, satisfaction evident in his expression. And the customer feedback, overwhelmingly positive. Clay's pride was palpable, especially about the balance of the chef's knives and the grip on the cast iron pans. "People keep saying they've never held cookware that felt so natural." "That's what happens when you design for the user, not the marketing campaign," Ronan replied, pausing to observe a customer testing the weight of a Santoka knife, the appreciation evident in their expression. "I still can't believe how quickly it all came together," Clay said. "From concept to store in 6 months. When you build on the right foundation, everything else follows naturally." They continued through the store, stopping occasionally to speak with customers and staff. The atmosphere hummed with genuine enthusiasm, so different from the calculated hype of Veloware's recent years. Later that afternoon, Ronan visited the new Veloware headquarters. The space had been redesigned, shedding the cold minimalism of Ivy's era for something more substantial and authentic. In the product development lab, designers worked on prototypes of the rebranded core collection. Each piece underwent rigorous testing for functionality, durability, and user experience processes that had been abbreviated under previous leadership. Julian met him by the test kitchen, where chefs put cookware through real-world scenarios. "Q1 numbers are in," he reported. "Profits down 15% from last year, but customer satisfaction up 62%. Return rate has dropped to under 2%. Short-term pain for long-term gain," Ronan observed. "The brand restoration is proceeding exactly as planned." "And Ivy filed for bankruptcy last week," Julian replied. "Turns out lifestyle influencers aren't particularly loyal when the lifestyle disappears." Ronan absorbed this without visible reaction. "And the prenup held?" "Completely. Her challenge was dismissed. Judge cited clear language and proper execution." Ronan nodded once. Matter closed. As evening approached, he made one final stop, his private workshop, a space he'd maintained separate for both companies. Here, surrounded by tools and materials, he found his center. Jasper waited for him, examining a prototype knife with critical attention. "The balance is perfect," the older man commented, setting the blade down carefully. "You haven't lost your touch. Some skills remain, even when unused," Ronan replied, removing his jacket and rolling up his sleeves. Jasper watched as he selected a piece of steel and began the preliminary work of blade-making, a ritual that had started his journey decades earlier. "Veloware is recovering," Jasper observed. "Forge House is thriving. Your revenge is complete." "Not revenge," Ronan corrected, focus unwavering from his task. "Restoration. And now, with both companies under your control." Ronan looked up, meeting his mentor's gaze. "Now I build something that will outlast me. Something worthy of the craft itself." Jasper smiled. "You're finally back where you belong." "No," Ronan replied, returning to his work with renewed purpose. "I'm ahead.